Welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader. I'm Dwight Habermehl. Come join me in the living room for some honest conversations. I'll be talking to guests about their journey with Christ through the joys, the challenges, and the messiness of leadership. There's always something to learn from someone's story, so let's get started. Welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader. I'm Dwight Habermehl, and I have my guest today, Dr. Danny Smith. Danny's from Middleton, Nova Scotia, and a great friend here in the network. And Danny, it's great to have you here today. We're recording first thing in the morning. You, quite early, you've done well to get up and have a coffee and get going. So thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Danny, we've known each other now for probably 20 years at least, and one thing that I've so appreciated is watching you and your family grow and pursue the Lord while serving the Lord in Middleton. And today's topic, we wanted to talk about family and ministry, and particularly around raising children in ministry, which, you know, is a real challenge, I can imagine. You know, maybe you could start off by sharing a little bit about yourself and your family there in Middleton.
Sure, yeah. So, married to my wife, Lisa. We have two children, Josh and Hannah, who are at this point in the late stages of teenagerhood and young adulthood. Josh is off to university, and Hannah will be wrapping up her grade 12 year. So we've almost made it to the finish line of seeing our kids into young adulthood. So.
Amazing. And you pastor a church?
Yes, I do. Yes, I'm at the Middleton Baptist Church.
And you've been there how many years now?
I think I'm in my 23rd or 24th year altogether.
Yeah, really incredible. In fact, I remember when the kids were born and watching them grow up from little people now to young adults, which is amazing. How do you and your spouse balance the demands of ministry with the needs of your children?
Yeah, that's. I think that's been definitely one of the things that has challenged us over the years to try and find the right balance. And I would say one of the things that we found is trial and error have been have been the way that we've learned. I mean, we certainly have not done everything perfectly, or looking back the way that we maybe would have done it now, but God's been gracious in His lessons and in His teaching of us in that area. I think a few things I think have been important for us. When our daughter Hannah was born, so Josh and Hannah were born 2 years apart, we really sensed a call from God that Lisa would, at least in those early years, stay home. And I'm so thankful for her for doing that. I understand that that's, not necessarily what God might call all families to.
And it's getting harder these days.
And even if there's the desire, it may not, be, feasible for that to happen. But, but in the time when our kids were young, that was the opportunity, or what the call that we felt God had on our lives. And I can say, there's been years when it was tight financially, tighter than it would have been if we both were working. But we have seen God's faithfulness year after year after year, and situation after situation. And I think that in and of itself, has been a ministry to our kids, and a lesson that God is faithful and He can provide, and and I think they would say that that's one of the things that they've, learned through being in our home.
Is it hard, do you think, to be a PK? I mean, the preacher's kid?
Yeah, so I think it can be hard, and I think a lot of the hardness maybe depends on choices you make as parents, and I think the church that you happen to be in, and the expectations that are placed on their children. So we made an intentional effort from when our kids were babies not to raise them as PKs, to not put that pressure.
How do you do that? How do you, you talk about intentionality, which I really appreciate. What are those intentional steps you take?
Yeah, I think for us it was more trying to manage expectations around, are we, because our kids are pastors' kids, do we expect them to, behave in certain ways or be involved in certain things that we wouldn't expect of other children and youth in our church? And so we really tried to allow our kids some latitude and to be able to choose, their own interests, discover their own giftings, and step into those things instead of, trying to place them into maybe a predetermined mold of what, a PK should look like. But I will say, I mean, we had great partners in the church that we're part of. They have loved our kids and embraced them and have not, placed the undue expectations on them that I understand, sometimes comes along with being in ministry in a church. And I hear some of those stories, and I feel for those families where that is a real struggle in the church they're in.
Well, and it sounds like grace was a very important part of that. I can imagine, if the kids are at school all week long and, they try to experiment with this or that or the other thing, or they say, fuddle-duddle or whatever the case may be. And, the parents of the pastor of the church and your kid said that. Does any of that ever come up, and how important is grace in that environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think grace is a big part of it. I think the other side of that, I think, as well, is just, a clear understanding of boundaries as well, in terms of, this is how we, live as a family. This is how we're going to pursue God. But that, I feel like the way that we raised our kids and the boundaries we put in place and the truth we try to teach them, it would be the same whether I was a pastor or, whether I was a garbage collector. Like, I feel like we Lisa and I had those values going in, and that what I do for work didn't determine the way that we would raise our kids.
Have you ever had to defend that boundary in the congregation in one form or another?
I think that there have been times, maybe where, just small instances, maybe where, there's been the expectation maybe that, our kids would be at this event or would do this thing. And, I'm reflecting on that question, and I'm thinking, it wasn't so much the congregation that was the one that was kind of ribbing them to be at that thing. It was me. So I think that's been something that we have not experienced a lot as a family. Now, maybe my kids would tell you something very different. You'll have to bring them in after this interview and see if everything I've said is factual. But I think too, I mean, just to kind of add one other thing. When Josh was born, the house that we were living in was literally in the back parking lot of the church facility. And again, grace came in, and the church, within a couple years, graciously agreed to decommission that home. It was old and in need of sort of repair, and allowed us to purchase our own home that was a little ways outside of town. And I think that just that distance
was healthy,
and it allowed our kids a space where they could, be themselves and grow up without, my work being their backyard. And I think that was really important as well.
I was very interested by a comment you made earlier about the expectations you have. And I would imagine that as a pastor or a ministry leader, you'd probably have to keep your own expectations in check and be very self-conscious or self-aware of how you're managing that element.
Yeah, and so I would say, sometimes I'm successful in that, and other times not so much. I'm just thinking of a recent example, in our home where our son and daughter, they play pickup soccer at a neighboring community, and have made some great relationships with some of the folks that show up for that, but it was youth group night, and so our daughter wanted to go. It was the last night of pickup soccer, and she wanted to go to pickup soccer, and I wanted her to go to youth group. And so that was a challenge for me, because I thought, no, this is where you should be. But we, at the end of the day, allowed her to make the decision. She went to soccer, which I think, looking back, was good, because she's very faithful to youth group. I mean, that's it's not like she's slacking off from youth group. It's that these relationships outside of church are important to her, and I think important to God. But I just thought the right thing would be you be in youth group. So as I've reflected back on that, I realized, no, I put my expectations on her, and need to manage that and allow her to make decisions as well. So,
well, here's another bit of a curveball or another question. Have you ever been wounded by your children?
Oh, yes. I mean, children are little sinners just like us. So they say things. I mean, we can flip it around. I mean, I've said things that have wounded my children. And certainly, in the heat of the moment, in an argument, or, when I'm not the most popular person in the room, there's things that my children have said that have been wounded. But I think, one of the things I really love about my relationship with my children is both ways. We've always been able to go to one another and ask forgiveness and give forgiveness. And so I don't look back, and I don't think they would either, and say, there are unresolved issues between, Dad and me. Like we have worked those out and forgiven one another and moved on. So.
Well, and I think that is a powerful, powerful principle. I feel like they need to see our humility and our humanity, and to get things right spiritually in the home. Forgiveness and asking for forgiveness and reconciliation is so key. I think it's something that models health for the next generation. incredibly so. Can you share an experience where maybe you and your spouse had to work through a significant challenge that related to your ministry that impacted your children? And how did you guys overcome that?
Yeah, I was trying to think through that question, and the church has had its challenges and struggles over the years, but I don't think there have been a lot of struggles in terms of conflict that have negatively affected our children. But what I do think has been difficult is, over the years, one of the great blessings that I have had, as a lead pastor, is to have excellent staff. And we've had many different staff people over the years, and some that our kids have been very close with, some of that have been very influential in their lives, back when they were in kids ministry, the key kids ministry leader, moved on, and then, more recently, the person who has been with them in youth ministry has moved on. And I think that has been challenging for them to see these key people in their lives move on into other fields of ministry, and to kind of deal with and negotiate the hole in their life that's left when these key people leave. So I think, that's kind of the church challenge that has most impacted our kids. And I think it's just, been walking with the kids, helping them to celebrate the ministries of these key people in their lives, and to help them recognize as well that, part of God's blessings in our lives are the people He brings in, but part of blessing others is helping them leave well, trusting that God is going to bring other people into our lives that are going to, pick up where they left off and help us to carry on. So I think transition times would probably be the moments where I most have seen that. For those whose children have experienced wounding in ministry, COVID as an example, yes, sure.
There were a lot of hurtful things that went on in the way people responded to that crisis. And, young adult children and teenage children viewed that, watching the conflicts that happened. For those, who walked away from wounds within the body as PKs or pastor kids, what would you say to those families?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, I'm sorry that that's been your experience. And that is not how Jesus envisioned the church to operate and to be. I think, one of the things that we've tried to do in our family and in raising our children is not to try and gloss over some of the messiness of church. I want my kids to understand that we don't gather on Sunday morning with perfect people, and that, sometimes in families we do hurt one another, and not that that's right, but part of being the church is that, we don't choose who our family is in that context, and God in His grace or in His humor, I just think the church shouldn't work, but it does a lot of the time. Like, you bring all these people in from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses, different sexes, different ethnicities, and you throw them all together in this one space, and then God says, well, get along. And so I try and help our kids understand that doesn't always go well, that we bring our own brokenness into this family, and sometimes that brokenness spills over and it hurts other people, and we say things and we do things that brings hurt. And but we are still called to love and to show grace and to show forgiveness and to pursue reconciliation, and all of those things. And so I feel like that our kids have an understanding that this is not supposed to be a perfect place. And I think that helps them as they go and when they see something that's off, not to just say, oh, that's a bunch of hypocrites, I don't want to be any part of this. No, I think they can see I bring some of my own brokenness to this family. They love me. How can I as well love them through whatever is coming out, whatever pus is coming out in their lives at the moment, and work through this in a redemptive way. So.
Yes. No, I totally agree. And, we've had in the network often the theme of grace and truth. And you can't have truth without grace.
That's right.
And I've often said to my own kids, you've got to give people room to struggle.
That's right. Yeah.
Like, people have to wrestle with things to come to their place of understanding or their place of maturity. Let them struggle, but be an encouragement with truth.
Yeah. And I would say to them as well, like most often, they're not even mad at me as the pastor. Like there's something else that's going on in their life that they may not even know or understand, that's sitting there under the surface, that's really the root, and I'm just the one that it's coming out at this time. So I can see people through the eyes of grace in that way, and I try and help my kids see others in the same way.
We've got just 3 or 4 minutes left. What encouragement would you give to pastoral leaders and ministry leaders in general about raising family, protecting the home, and nurturing a healthy home while under the pressures of ministry?
Yeah. 3 words: pray, pray, pray. I have found that, and I'm learning this more and more. Prayer is the most effective weapon against the enemy, and the thing that can most affect your child's heart. And Lisa and I both over the years have tried to pray both for and with our children on a regular basis. And that's my story. I had a mom and a grandmother who were prayer warriors and who prayed me through thick and thin, and I've determined that be my children's story as well. That I would faithfully contend for them in the place of prayer, believing that even though there may be moments and times when there may be a strain in my relationship with my kids, or when they may be headed in a direction that I know is not where God would lead them, that God has my kids in the palm of his hand and he will not let them go. And even though I may not see it in the moment, I have heard so many testimonies, I've seen it in my own life, of how prayer really does change things. And so I know in the moment the struggle is real, the hurt is real, but never give up in the place of prayer on behalf of your children. And I think the other thing, I'll just go back to something that we talked about earlier. Be willing to forgive. It really hurts my heart when I talk with some parents who hang on to unforgiveness towards their children. And you know, it may be that the children hold on unforgiveness towards the parents, and you can't control that. But the one thing you can do is to lay down whatever offense you may be hanging on to, and have that door wide open. I think of the story of the prodigal son and the father just waiting, forgave everything, waiting for the son to come back home. And so if there's strain, if there's hurt, lay down whatever it is that you're hanging on to in terms of offense. Fling the door wide open of welcome and pray him back home. That's what I would say.
That's amazing. Dr. Danny Smith from Middleton Baptist. Danny, thank you so much for sharing your heart and your journey and the story, basically, of your family. It's been a real blessing this morning. And we'll see you next time on The Healthy Christian Leader. Well, thanks for joining this conversation. I trust that you were encouraged and challenged by the stories and experiences that were shared today. Would you join us next week? You can find new episodes weekly in video form on the Aaron Ministries YouTube page and in audio form wherever you get your podcasts. Aaron Ministries is an interdenominational network of friends in ministry with a mission to foster healthy Christian leadership. Check out our website, aaronministries.com, for more information and resources, and on how you can donate to our ministry and potentially start a healthy Christian leader gathering in your area. Until we meet again, may you experience the Lord's blessing, grace, and peace. I'll see you next week.